Welcome to Bite-Sized Bios. This is meant to be a mini-sode that will accompany HDTH. Every week, I will pick a person from history and dive into their lives. Hey guys, and welcome back to another mini-sode, Bite-Sized Bios we got here for you. We're going to take a small bite out of some profiles in history and try to tell you, I guess, as much as we can in about 5 to 7 minutes about these people's entire lives. And that's kind of the fun of this. It's kind of where the same idea of where the idea of the roundup came from, which was a segment on the main podcast, which is how can we fit as much information in a small amount of time. I think it's more fun that way. Instead of sitting here and just trying to drone on and on and on, let me tell you about this and what happened with this person at this time. And like, no, let me take all of their life and kind of condense it into a 5 to 6 minute segment and see where we get. So for today, we're doing Oprah Winfrey. This is the number 3 of the Bite-Sized Bios, BSB. And if you have anybody that you would like to see profiled in 5 to 7 minutes, please put it on the Twitter page. Let me know what you think. But yeah, without further ado, here's this week's episode. All right, so today we're talking about Oprah for our Bite-Sized Bios. And we're just going to jump right in. Oprah Winfrey was born in Kosciuszko, Mississippi on January 29th of 1954. Her given name is actually Orpah, not Oprah. And Orpah is a biblical character from the book of Ruth in the Bible. People couldn't really pronounce her name, Orpah, kept mixing around the letters. So everyone called her Oprah. She kind of just went with it. So now she's Oprah. And growing up, her family was really poor. She was raised by her grandmother until the age of 6. Her grandmother was a maid. And around this time, Oprah has been quoted as saying that she would have to sleep outside sometimes or in some sort of like vestibule type front porch situation. And she seems to think it was because of the color of her skin. So there was even like, I guess racism towards the same people of the same color in her house. Her mother also lived there as well. Her mother was a maid. And so around the age of 6, her mother actually took her and she and her moved to Milwaukee. Things were okay for a little bit, and then around the teenage years, she started acting out, stealing some things, and her mother sent her to live. Actually, or right before that, I believe she got pregnant with a child and then had it prematurely, and the child died. So she basically kind of looked at that as like a new lease on life, if you will, or at least the people in her family did. And it was around this time that she went to move down to Nashville with her father because her mom sent her out there because she was like, I don't know what to do with this girl. She's a handful. But when she got to Nashville, she really began to blossom. She, in her final year of high school, she worked as a part-time anchor at the WVOL station and continued to do so on into college. She ended up being crowned Miss Black Tennessee, I believe in the early 80s or late 70s. Let's see. She worked in radio from the age of 16 forward. She obtained a full ride scholarship to Tennessee State University and majored in communication, but she wouldn't actually receive her degree until 1987. And she talks about her college time here in an interview that I found from Stanford.
And Mr. Cox said to me, the same professor said you can't draw a straight line with a ruler. He said, I came back from taking this phone call, and he said, who was that? I said, this is Guy at CBS. He keeps calling me and wants me to interview for a job. And Mr. Cox said, that is why you go to school, fool. So that CBS can call you. That is why you're in school.
And so once she left Tennessee for Baltimore, she did the local news there. But basically, in the way this is more from her words than me just trying to speculate. But she's saying basically they didn't really like her on the local news there, and they didn't want to let her out of her contract. So instead of doing that, they put her on a talk show called People Are Talking with this guy. It was her and another guy, and she even mentions how that guy was getting paid way more than she was. And that was her first foray into the entire talk show format. And so from there, she actually, once her contract is up, she goes from Baltimore to Chicago. And once she gets to Chicago, she's given a spot on the talk show in the morning called AM Chicago in January of 1984. And this led her to be cast in the movie Color Purple, for which she was nominated for an Oscar. And 2 years later, I thought this was really interesting. I didn't know. This is like the real impetus or the foundation of what is the Oprah Winfrey Show. The foundation of it is basically AM Chicago. So 2 years after she got there, they renamed AM Chicago to the Oprah Winfrey Show and then doubled its time limit by, or just doubled the time limit. It went from 30 minutes to an hour. So if you've ever wondered where the Oprah Winfrey Show came from. It used to be called AM Chicago, but she was just so good at what she did, they had to name it after her, basically. At the age of 32, Winfrey became the first African-American nationally syndicated television host. She ended up being the number one nationally syndicated television host across the country, regardless of race, pretty much not too long after that. She also launched a television company, which made her the first black person and third woman to control her own major studio, and this would catapult her into international fame. This is kind of when Oprah starts to become a household name. President Bill Clinton signed what is known as the Oprah's Bill in December of '93, and the centerpiece of that was the National Child Protection Act, which created a national registry of convicted child abusers. So, pretty interesting and definitely, history-making legislation. She would go on to launch her iconic book club in 1996. Everyone knows about the Oprah Book Club. The Oprah Winfrey Show would run from 1986 to 2011. You could also count those 2 years before 86 when it was AM Chicago, but from 86 to 2011 was when she actually, the namesake and the title, was all her name. And we'll get to her personal life real fast before we get out of here. She's not married, does not have any children, does have a long-term companion over 30 years named Stedman Graham, who's an author, a teacher, and a business executive. She has a really good friend named Gayle King, who she met during her time in Baltimore when they were doing the local news. She would go on to create her own network as well as creating the Oxygen Network, or co-creating that. And she's also a spokesperson for many brands. She also owns a 10% stake in Weight Watchers. You ever see those commercials where she's just like screaming, like, I love bread. You can have bread, chips, and all that. Like, that's totally her brand. And the last thing about her before we get out of here is her net worth. She's worth about $2.5 billion. And yeah, that's Oprah Winfrey. All right. That's been another episode of BSB, Bite-Sized Bios. Be coming at you with another episode of How Did That Happen on Monday at 4:30 a.m. Definitely be looking for that. I appreciate you guys for pressing play. Definitely. And I want to say it's a random topic, but I do see that there are people in the UK that actually listen to this podcast. I'm curious. I would love to pick your brain sometime if you ever have a minute, just to know why. And I mean that in a good way. Just curious. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in a few days.